Welcome to the Six Figure Personal Stylist podcast, the ultimate no BS business podcast for ambitious personal stylists ready to build a six-figure and beyond personal styling business. You won't hear the typical snooze fest business advice that most personal stylists get told all of the time. Nope, instead, I'll be sharing business building strategies that will help you create a killer personal brand, a cult following of loyal personal styling clients, and make a ton of cash while creating lasting style transformations for your clients. I'm Nicole Achi, your host and a former personal stylist of 14 years who built a lucrative styling business in 3 major cities, but only after spending years trying to crack the six-figure styling business code without burning out. And now I'm here to tell you how to do exactly the same. Let's get into it.
Okay, today we're going to talk about the biggest misconceptions that I see stylists having about committing to an ideal client or a niche and how they are costing them money and, quite frankly, probably liking and enjoying your business. I was talking to a stylist the other day who I've been doing this work with one-on-one, and she was like, if I had known this years ago, it would have saved me so much anxiety, so much heartbreak, so much self-doubt that just didn't need to be there. And as a stylist who's went through like 3 or 4 other programs for stylists, and it's so hard for me to know what is possible for each of you when you go all in on a group of people. And I know that from the other standpoint of somebody else that is sort of like kind of struggling with the idea of niching, it could feel scary because you don't have any evidence that this group of people who you're probably not included in that niche, like you are probably not in that niche most likely, or you're no longer in that niche as a person. It's so scary to be like, well, how do I know that this person's going to be able to pay for it? Which is kind of like why we think, like, well, let me cast my net as wide as possible and try to appeal to everybody, but also usually no one. And one of those billions of people will hire me, when that really is a symptom of a lack of business understanding of the market. And that is what I think is so drastically missing in the industry right now. It's fair enough for you to sit in your own beliefs, false or otherwise, about what's possible for you in your business when you don't have the facts about what the marketplace looks like. And unfortunately, despite the fact that there are so many styling platforms and groups and different things that are trying to do these like quote unquote business trainings for stylists, nobody's giving them a real good sense of the market. So that what happens is we have a bunch of stylists that are sitting in these false beliefs because they don't have any information to even cling on to minutely to think, okay, maybe this could work for me. And I can tell you it worked for me. By the time I closed my business, I was very niched. I was working with women who were personal brands, who were public speakers and coaches. And specifically public speakers was kind of like my most public facing niche. And if you're thinking to yourself that is incredibly niched, you're right, it is. And because I know how to assess a niche for both myself and my clients, that will yield income. That, like, I'm not just saying you can pick any niche. That's not the case at all. There are better and worse niches you could pick. There are ways that I run my stylists through thinking through, like, is this the right market fit for what you want to do? Does what you want to do as a stylist meet with the expectations of what the market will pay for at the rate that you need in order to survive? When you have that information in front of you, it becomes a lot easier to silence the fear, which is still going to come up. You're still going to have doubts, but at least now you know why you're flying in the face of the doubt, because you have actual information and data and a framework to evaluate things with, versus being like, yeah, I know everyone tells me I need to niche, but like, how do I know that group of people will hire me? Which, fair. Again, nothing I'm going to say today is going to take away the fear, because your brain doesn't want to do something when it's new. It wants to keep you safe. But I invite you, as we go into this conversation, to consider if safety is equaling thriving in your business. Because for me, it didn't. And for most of the stylists that I work with who have gone through multiple programs, who are on every free call with these different groups that run these quote unquote business trainings, they're getting all the information, but the information lacks specificity and clarity on the marketplace. So they have no reason to go all in. And what my goal is for you today is to know that you're going to be fearful if you decide to do this. And that's not evidence of it not working in the future, because you cannot get to the next level no matter where you are doing the things you were doing before. And the question is, are you willing to put up with a little bit of discomfort to actually be able to style people that you want to style, to actually have the type of clients and the type of income that you want? Because that is what is at stake by you not understanding the marketplace. And so each of the myths we're going to talk about today is going to kind of give you a little bit more insight into the personal styling marketplace and what the market demand is for styling services. So the first thing I want to talk about is a myth I hear a lot, which is that like there is another way, a funnel, a ad, some other mechanism that you can use, that you can pay for, that you can get a marketing team in to help you do, that is going to help you get clients without having to niche. And quite frankly, what this usually looks like is people saying that they are hiring a marketing team, or they are going to try funnels, or they're going to do paid newsletters, or they're going to run ads. And all of those things can absolutely work for you. But what you have to remember about those things is that is like the car, and the fuel is the messaging. And you cannot have the fuel if you don't know who you're talking to, because the way that you message things and the way that you put them into those tools, whether that be a funnel, a paid newsletter, an ad, requires messaging. And that messaging will vary depending on who you're talking to, because who you're talking to and why they want personal styling services is not the same for every person. Not only is there just the transactional and the transformational client that I've talked about, but within that group, you have different buyer types, you have different motivation styles. And so you really need to understand that all of the things that you could pay for, which I am not against, are things that you need to do after you figure out how to talk to people in a way that makes them buy from you. Because nobody is in your client meetings and your fittings and your closet edits and your sales calls but you. And so a marketing team coming in is going to have a very, as do many business coaches, quite frankly, in my own experience of working with people that are not in the industry, they have a very superficial view of what we do. They have a very surface level understanding of this. And as a result, they tend to have stylists doing things in their marketing that is very superficial. And it does not in any way translate to sales, because it will grow your audience to do, theme kind of Instagram reels that are about, stealth wealth or, mob wife or whatever. Like, it will get you views, but that's not what the person that's about to drop $3,000 to $5,000 on a styling service and let you into their psychological, financial life, to let you see that, to share their insecurities with you. That's not what they're looking for in order to hire you, period. And so if you don't know how to speak to these things, what their concerns are, what their sales trigger is, that's the number one thing. If you don't know those things and you're going and thinking an ad or a marketing team or something else is going to be able to do it for you, you're expecting a car to drive without putting gas in it. And that's it, period. So it's so interesting to me how many people are like, okay, I'm going to do your program, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, when it comes to like the business side, after I hire a marketing team, after I hire whatever. And then 6 months later, they have even less money. And now they have no idea how they're going to get their business on track. Because at the end of the day, and this is not just about stylists, I've talked to so many of my business friends about this across industries, you are in charge of your business. And if you don't know how to make sales and you don't know how to make relationships, there's nobody else you're going to hire unless they can teach you how to do those two things that is going to fix the problem. Because you need money, because you're a business and this is not a charity, right? And you need relationships with your clients at a depth level that allows you to speak to their concerns. If you look at yourself as a buyer, if you look at yourself as a consumer, I'm going to guess that the reason you're listening to this podcast is because I speak directly to you and to your experience of being a stylist. Some of that is because I was a stylist, sure. But most of it is because I spend hours looking at personal stylist content. I've interviewed dozens of stylists before I opened the styling consultancy. I have been very slow to roll out more and more offers because I want to make sure that I understand what the market wants. So again, this is not something that's specific to personal styling because I'm technically in the business coaching and consulting world, and it works. The framework works. It got me from $0 to six figures from April of 23 to April of 24. And I have not run one ad except for a $40 Instagram boosted post, which didn't get like huge results, but it got more people on my email list, which was good enough. But that's all, because I want to make sure that before I pay for ads or before I pay for even the website to be completed, I am sure that my messaging is down. I am sure that the way that I'm speaking to my client and the relationships I'm building are not just a one and done situation, that I have repeat clients. And now that I have that 1 year into the business, I'm starting to look at the other things I need to do, like to grow my reach. But I don't grow reach, and I don't recommend you grow reach until you know how to sell to the people that are on your accounts right now, because all you're doing is taking money and burning it, period. So the best way to get your marketing and your messaging dialed in and learn how to build those relationships is to speak to them, the people that you want to talk to. And in order to have a conversation, you have to know where to start. And you can't know where to start if you don't niche down, period. You could, if you had a team of 90 people helping you and looking at stats and running different, types of simulations and having, expensive software. But last time I checked, that's A, not something any stylist I know wants to do. And B, most of you are not in a situation where you have a company that's big enough that makes sense for that. And quite frankly, why would you do that, even if you did, when all you have to do is be a person and go all in on another person? Like, it's free. What I'm telling you to do is literally free. That doesn't mean you're not scared, but if you think about it, everything is scary the first time you do it. So this idea that there's some other mechanism, some other way of marketing that's just a tool is going to make up for not knowing who you're talking to. And it won't, because again, car without gas doesn't go anywhere. So that's the first myth. The second myth that I really want to chat about is you know who your ideal client is if you can pinpoint a few characteristics or lifestyle markers, and they can pay you. So you know, for example, that they are 40, they have a family, it's a woman, she's probably a professional, she probably makes $100,000 a year, maybe she has a dog, a kid, and she's willing to pay you. So you think, well, that must be my ideal client. Here's what I want you to understand. Just because somebody pays you doesn't mean that they are your ideal client. In fact, that is exactly what I mean when I say scarcity, because it tells me that if that is your marker for ideal clients, if I asked you to dig a little deeper in terms of what happens once that person pays you, and then you go through the experience, my guess is that you're going to give me, if you've had 3 clients that fit that bill, a wide variety of experiences with that client in terms of their responsiveness, how quickly that styling service was from start to finish, the depth of the work you were able to do with that person, whether that met your desired depth or not. So if you wanted to be transformational with that person, but they were very transactional, you're going to leave that interaction feeling like, I don't know if it was the best fit for me, or I don't know if the client got the end result that I hoped for. And what happens is, because we get so excited to take people's money because we haven't had a client for a long time, because we haven't gone all in and our marketing is inconsistent and all of those things, which are totally normal, right? What happens is we decide that it's easy to pinpoint things like they're married, they have a job, they pay me, they have kids. But those things are actually in no way, shape, or form what drives that person to buy from you. So they're just commonalities that we tend to think, oh, this must be my ideal client, because what we're seeing is a pattern. We're seeing a pattern of these types of demographics paired with the fact that they give us money. And because I know that I'm not the first person to sit here and tell you guys that you need to niche or you need to pick an ideal client, because I know there's not right now on the market, there is not one platform or one group of people that is talking to stylists that doesn't tell you this, but they tend to stay there. They make this much money, they do that. And what I want to share with you is there are enough people making a lot of money, even if you don't know them, in the world right now, specifically if you're doing a hybrid model of virtual and in person that can pay a fee for a stylist. That's not the problem, especially as the market has become savvier and savvier to what personal stylists do and their value. Not the problem. The problem is that nobody is talking about what the actual sales driver is, what the actual thing is that gets them to say, yes, for sure, I want to hire you. And they are not the same for everybody, even if all of these people have the same demographics. So let me kind of break this down very specifically for you. Let's say your ideal client, again, is a busy woman who's a working professional, who has a family, and she's in her 40s. She has a dual income home, meaning her and her partner both make a certain amount of money. It's at least 6 figures or more. What I'm missing then is the reason why she wants the styling service. And they may tell you, oh, it's to feel confident. It's because it's taking me so much time to get dressed. So now you're marketing to that and wondering, why isn't anybody responding? And let me tell you why. Because most people are not going to tell you the primary driver of the purchase until after the experience, because they don't actually know if you're going to get the result. And it's incredibly vulnerable to do that. Again, think about how you buy. Think about how you buy. You may or may not ask a question. You may just look at people's content and kind of lurk there. If the person reaches out to you, you may not answer. You kind of sit back and think about a lot of different factors, but you don't necessarily interact because that feels vulnerable. Well, same thing with your client, even if they hire you. They're waiting for the trust to be built. So what you don't have access to, you may have access on your new client form and they say to you like, oh, I don't feel confident. It's taking me too long. My body's changed. Cool. Those are the surface level reasons. But underneath that is a deeper feeling that they want to either get away from or embrace. They're either running from experience or they're running towards an experience. And my experience, whenever you're marketing, you kind of want to be able to balance those two things. You want to make sure that you're making it clear what's possible for somebody, so what they're running towards, but you also want to make sure that you're speaking to the things that they're afraid of so that they know that you understand them and build trust quickly. And so when you just go with the kind of superficial things that I'm mentioning and you don't know, well, what is the driver of the behavior, you will never really get where you want to go in your marketing. So let me give you a breakdown of what this looks like. I'm in my 40s and I have 2 groups of friends. They have all normal jobs, okay? One half of them work and they are kind of fit this description exactly. They're in their 40s. They have kids that are like 8 years old, 10 years old. They're working professionals and they would go to a stylist because they want to perform better at work and be seen a certain way as they go up the chain of seniority. They want to be seen as credible and they want to be seen as respected and they want to be seen as smart. So how they dress is in many ways an investment in their career. They also have very little time. They have kids. They probably don't really dress for themselves or really invest a lot of money in themselves generally for their clothes. The other group of people that are my friends that I know would hire a stylist would hire them from this space. They both have similar situation in terms of their work world. They also have children and they're busy. But the reason they would hire a stylist, despite the fact they have the exact same outward demographics. In fact, a fair amount of my friends are in like the higher education and teaching space. So some of them have the same jobs. But the reason why this group of women would hire a stylist is because they feel like they've lost themselves, because they feel like they're doing stuff for everybody else and they come last. Now, that's also probably true of my group of friends who, are hiring a stylist to become more upwardly mobile in their career. But that's not the driver. That's not how they identify, even if that's their life experience. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, the demographics can be the same. Even the circumstances and some of the quote unquote pain points can be the same. That doesn't mean that's the driver of the sale. Because this other set of friends who feels like they've lost themselves is doing the personal styling experience and entering into it from a place of taking a stand for herself. And technically, sure, I think you can make the argument that the other group is too, but really it's from a place of like, this is a way for me to connect internally. The other group of friends I mentioned who are doing it to advance in their career are doing it as a way to connect externally. And those two types of women, they're actually two specific people I'm thinking of right now who have the same job, their kids are the same age. They have the same type of house. Like they literally make the same amounts of money. We went to high school together. We're very similar. We have the same education, right? These two women have exactly the same education, the same degrees. They're going to a stylist for radically different reasons. And so your messaging to the one who feels like she lost herself is not going to resonate with the one that wants to make sure that you're savvy enough and understand how to dress somebody who's a woman who's becoming more senior to get credibility. Because that person wants to know, do you know how to read the room professionally? Do you understand, and can you tell me in a very specific way what it looks like to dress for credibility in a workplace? I don't want to be too dressed up. I don't want to be too dressed down. I don't want to look like I'm trying too hard. Can you speak to that in your marketing? The other one wants to know that you're a safe place for her to explain that she doesn't feel like she comes first. And she doesn't want you to explain to her about all of the things about credibility in the workplace. And she might tell you that she got a new job and that's why she's hiring you, but that isn't why. It's because there's a point in her identity that there's a mark, and she says enough. Totally, one's internally driven, one's externally driven, period. And so when you don't know your ideal client the way that I need you to with the psychographics, you will never get sales in this market, or you'll get sales that are incredibly sporadic and you will have no idea when your next one is coming. And the cost of that to you, what that means to you, is that you will then doubt yourself. Every time you start to get back into a client relationship or an engagement, you will wonder and you will overgive, and you will not have the ability to streamline your services, to be able to continue to become better as a stylist, because there are these huge gaps in your work, time between one client and the next. You can't make things better. You can't streamline them. You can't get your marketing better if you're not talking to people all the time. And that's why on my stories, I talk a lot to you guys about relationships and how you need to think of your marketing and your selling as a series of relationships. Because if you do, that means that you know exactly who you're talking to. And if you don't have clients right then, I teach my stylists all the time. If you don't have a client, here's how I want you to go and get into their world. Here's how I want you to research them. Here's how I want you to get in conversation with them. Here's the type of experts and people I want you to be connecting with and networking with online or in person to continue to get to know them better, so your content can continue to get better, even if you're not in their house styling them or on Zoom telling them what outfits look good. I need you in conversations. You cannot have conversations with the masses. That's not how relationships are built. So this myth that if you just know the basic lifestyle characteristics, you will be able to market and get a client is a very outdated model. That used to be the case before COVID. That used to be the case before people got way more savvy about styling. I used to be able to get away with that as a stylist for probably the bulk of my career. And then all of a sudden, everything shifted. And I'll tell you, getting my business back to six figures after the pandemic was very eye-opening because I had so many established clients, I was able to do pretty well, which is true of many of you listening. But I wasn't able to stay at the level that, I was before COVID making six figures if I didn't change my marketing. And what I see is so many established stylists that have a reasonable established client roster, they do okay. Like they stay at 40, 50, somewhere in there. But they're so afraid to push themselves to get to the next level, to learn how to market for this kind of world right now, to put themselves out there because they're thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about, if I'm doing this from the standpoint of creating relationships, because all of you that are in that point, all of you that are sitting there at this, like you're not growing, you're using old SEO and word of mouth and hoping that people will come to you. That's going to just wear out now, because even if your SEO works for you, when they get to your Instagram or your social media, if it is not active, they're going to dip out, because the reality is we all want to work with people that understand us. And now we know that there are people out there that understand us with the influx of online businesses. So there's no reason for somebody to settle for a stylist that will not step up to the plate for them, because they don't have to. There's plenty of others. Back in the day when I started, nobody knew what this was, or like it was so novel that you could say you were a stylist for professional women who make six figures, and that was good enough. Because they had no frame of reference for what other possibilities were out there for them. And the majority of people's lives were very much structured around how they dressed being part of the context of their professional life. That has all changed. So now you see people way more interested in what is like the transformational way of styling because they don't have the context, the life context that they had pre-COVID to dictate what they wear because offices have changed. People aren't going into the offices. They're inconsistently at the office, right? A couple days a week. And even if they were, everything's gotten more casual. So the things that made people hire, say me, back in the day when I, got started, they were way too general. I could never get away with that. And that's certainly not how I could get away from losing $30,000 in sales during the pandemic and getting myself back to six figures. Like I just couldn't do that anymore. That's why I went in so specifically to public speakers. So that's the kind of thinking I need you to have if you're an established stylist who these things worked for in the past and you're listening to this with your eyebrow raised. Because I see you, I know you, I get it. I was so afraid to be seen too. My husband used to be like, you need to run ads, you need to do this. And my biggest fear was my audience getting bigger because I could barely handle the audience I had in front of me. And I know what that terror feels like. But it gets so much easier when you know who you're talking to because now you know who to focus on and you don't focus on yourself anymore. Now you can get up every day and know who you're trying to help and what your mission is. So that's why I'm so passionate about this for that group of folks, because I know what you've put into this career and I know it's possible for you and it's not that far away. So the last one I want to get into is that it will be kind of boring if you go all in on one client. And oh man, do I get this. But I think I talked about in an earlier episode, I don't know what number it is now because my memory is not what it used to be. Let's be honest, my memory is never really that good. But I think it was like 2 or 3 episodes ago, I talked about not making drama in your business. And you know what's so funny is that we can think like, oh, it'll be so boring if we go in on one group of people and like one psychographic and, But what I find is that the deeper in my clients go, the more interesting their content is. And if I can just get them to stop doubting and just get into action and make the types of connections that I suggest and network in the way that I want them to. And I don't even mean you have to leave your house, because one thing about me is I'm never going to tell you to network that way if it's not for you. If it is for you, you go. But that isn't for many of us. So there's so many ways you can find out information about your ideal client, even if they're not the majority of your clients right now. There's so many ways. It's never been easier to do this, which is why I love the internet so hard. And the more my clients just set their fear aside, they just like put it over here and go all in, and they kind of like discover more about this client and they interview past clients that are good fits and they do all the work. They get so excited about their content, and their content gets more interesting and more creative. And as their content gets more interesting and creative, they enjoy their marketing more. And as they enjoy their marketing more, they get more opportunities they never would have expected. And that is how your business becomes so much less boring than if you don't go all in on a niche or a target market. Because you know what's really boring? Not working as a stylist. That right there is real boring to me. And it also creates such a feeling of self-doubt that even if you're the best stylist in the world, even if your services and your menu, your styling menu and the way that you deliver is interesting and cool and unique, and you do amazing style discovery and you have raving fans of clients, if you don't keep up that momentum, your brain will tell you that this is a shit show and that you should just stop. Trust me, I know. And that's why I'm so passionate about you guys going all in and like really going hard on this. It's because if you look at the reality you have now, if you're not earning what you want, or if you are earning what you want and you want to get to the next level and you're bored right now in your career, then it's likely the case that you're already bored. So what is the cost of you going all in and playing with content for 90 days? Even if it's not every single post, it could be every third post, it could be every fourth post. But if somebody gets to your page on Instagram and sees that you say that you are a stylist for architects and interior designers, like that person's going to be all in when they get there, right? Obviously. And if they even see 12 posts for them, they're going to be like, what does this person have to say? Right? So the thing that we forget is that we are so afraid of a future we don't know, but we're not really looking in any serious way at the reality of our present moment and what that looks like for our business. So we let our fear tell us stories that are not there. It will not be more boring for you to go more all in on an audience, because what I do know about stylists is they got into the game, 90% of them, they got into it because they are excited about seeing the person that they want to work with or another human being light up when they look in the mirror. And you do not get access to that if you're not working. And what is that fundamentally about? It's about a relationship you create with somebody. And it's such a special and specific relationship that stylists have with their clients. And why would it be boring for you to go deeper into those relationships? Like, that just doesn't make sense. It's about how we look at our business. It's not our business's job to keep giving to us without us putting anything into it. I did that for so long, and it really took a coach telling me in the kindest but toughest way possible that I was being I was being a brat. The word is not coming to me, but I was basically being a brat and expecting things. And so your content will get more interesting. Your business will get more interesting. The opportunities that come to you will get so much more interesting if you go all in, because now people have something to keep showing up for. And the last thing I want to leave you with, because I know that this is probably like a lingering fear, is you're going to think, yeah, but I don't want to leave people out. I don't want to leave people out. Here's the thing. What's really interesting about the human mind is that the more specific we are, the more generally people are like drawn to us, because we are showcasing a level of expertise that is unusual. And one thing about people broadly is they love leadership. They love people that show up fully as experts. And so it's an energy that people are drawn to. It's not necessarily the content, but the content helps you continue and to step into the identity of an expert and a thought leader as a stylist. And that's something that there's not enough interest in or enough talked about in this industry, is that if you go all in on a certain group of people in a niche, like the friend that I talked about who is in her 40s, is working, has 2 kids that are 8 and 10, and she wants a stylist so that she can feel a way of connecting with herself, right? So women in their 40s who feel like they've lost themselves and they want to connect. That's a niche, okay? And there's a lot of women in their 40s like that. Trust me, you have not been on the internet very much if you don't know about that. So what that means is now you have the opportunity to connect with other people that also have that niche of women, which there's a lot of them right now, and cross promote and do different things like that. And as you do that, your world gets bigger. And what happens is now people that are maybe men that are in that age group will notice your content, because what you're speaking to is a universal human experience. People feel like they're lost. You can feel like you're lost and be single. You can feel like you're lost and be 20. You can feel like you're lost and want to use your style to get you to the next, to feeling more connected to yourself at any age. But because you have your brain as a stylist, as the business owner, has a place to have a foothold to think, okay, what am I going to talk about today? Instead of just spinning your wheels and spinning out on things that aren't even real. Now you're like, okay, well, I know this client so well. Today I want to talk about this or that, or how they put things back and how they only shop at Target or whatever it is, right? But then they buy their kid $900 pajamas because that's a real thing. The Hannah Anderson pajama group is like a whole psychographic in and of itself, okay? That's a story for another day. But listen to how specific I'm being, right? This is what's possible for you. And what also happens is that more specific you are, even if the person isn't in the exact demographic, the psychographic is spoken to so well by how specific your content is and how creative and how many angles you can talk about it for, you start to attract other people. So for example, I am every day getting DMs from people that are not stylists. I would say several times a month, I get inquiries from people, graphic designers, coaches that want to work with me, even though I don't work with their demographic or their particular, type of business. The psychographics that I speak to stylists are so specific that they can see themselves in it, particularly if they're a creative entrepreneur or they work with a creative entrepreneur. And while I don't usually take those clients because it's just a distraction from what my primary purpose is here, it is evidence that the more specific and the more creative you are in how you deliver your message to a specific group of people makes it very interesting and captivating to a broad group of people. So right now, if you're not making consistent income months, you're likely not speaking to anyone in any serious way. Sure, once in a while you might get a DM and people say they like it, but that person may not hire you. And when you need clients at the level you need them, when you're not being consistent in your marketing, everything feels overwhelming because you just need another client. And this, what we talked about today, and these myths, and like really going in on this and letting your brain tell you the lies, and then setting them aside and doing the work anyways, you'll be unrecognizable, as will your business, in 90 days if you do this. So if you have more questions about this, hit me up in the DMs. I would love to do a bigger series on this because I think it's so important. But I hope that the way that we kind of broke this down today gives you something to think about and something to consider, and really gives you a point of hope for what is possible, because I don't want to see any more stylists throwing money into things to fix a problem that they are the only ones capable of fixing through relationships, because all of you are capable of it. And then you can make a lot of money and throw money at other problems that other people can fix. Deal? All right. Talk to you next time.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me. It turns out that social proof is actually pretty important. So if you could help me out, I'd so appreciate it. If you just had a quick free moment and could leave me a rating or review on the podcast app, that would be killer. And even better, if you wanted to share this episode on Instagram and tag me, that would totally make my day. And it would bring so much more awareness to the podcast and would help other stylists just like you who are looking to build lucrative styling business, because the better each of us does, the better all of us do. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll chat with you next time.